Miss Jormpus? Yes, Timothy. Is it true that there's a recipe in the Bible to force a woman to miscarry?
Ooh, this is gonna be a fun one. I'm going to try my best.
Where on earth did you hear that? I actually read it myself. It's in there.
Yes, it in fact is in there, and if you guys would like to look into it, it's in Numbers. I believe it's Numbers 11.
No, Timothy, you must have read it wrong. It's the ordeal of the bitter water, Miss Jormpus. Basically, if a woman is suspected of being unfaithful to her husband, they make her drink this thing called a bitter water, and it makes her miscarry.
Semi-correct. Semi-correct. I'll get into the rebuttal in a minute, but let's finish this video real quick, because that thing there on the side is keeping my attention.
Again, Timothy, I think you read it wrong. May this water that brings a curse enter your body so that your abdomen swells or your womb miscarries. Where are you reading that from, Timothy? The Bible. What version? Version? Yes, what version of the Bible are you reading?
I kind of do wish that Christians wouldn't get caught up in this trap, that some versions of the Bible is the truer Word of God, and not just that it's the literal truth, the Word of God. Some versions are worth reading better or worth reading more than others. That seems to be a trap a lot of Christians get caught up in. So it's the Word of God, it's the true Word of God. There is no version of the Word of God that is better than others. It's just a Word of God. All right.
It says NIV. Okay. See, Timothy, here we read the KJV, or King James Version.
Again, it's the Word of God. It's not truer or any less true. If it's another version or another translation, it's the Word of God. It's not any less true if it's coming from the NIV or the New King James or King James Version. It's the Word of God. Point blank period. Full stop.
Why are there different versions of the Bible if it's the infallible truth from God? Well, and how many versions are there? Shouldn't God come down and make sure we all have the correct version so that it's clear for everyone? Well, there's 2,800 versions of the Bible?
Okay, so let's get into the ordeal of the bitter water as it is in the book of Numbers. I actually came to understand this verse from a pro-choice march, because some of these pro-choice people, these people who are for abortion, were allegedly using scriptures from the Bible to defend their positions that abortion is okay, even though there's dozens more verses saying that it's not, right? But they're using the ordeal of the bitter water as a defense from the biblical perspective, saying that abortion's okay, right? And they're completely able and okay to do so. However, because there's 2,800 versions of the Bible, just missed a call. Because there's 28,000 versions of the Bible, as he said, some versions say miscarry, and some versions do not. So it's a matter of pedantic, educated guessing as to determine which is a miscarry and which is not. There's also this thing that the bitter water isn't actually supposed to induce a miscarry, but is actually supposed to indicate that the individual who is found to be in infidelity or suspected to be, again, we're talking about 2,800 different versions of the Bible, all saying the same thing, but differently enough to cause confusion among some people. So some say miscarry, and the book of Numbers is the child dies and it's like an abortion or what have you, because it's a common verse used by pro-choice people to justify abortion. In some versions of the Bible, it says, if the woman is suspected of infidelity because the husband's out on a trip, he's out there for a few days, his wife gets lonely and lies in bed with a man, it's unproven if it is, because during those days, if someone was caught in infidelity and they were caught, right, physically caught, they would be stoned to death. So, because this woman wasn't stoned to death, it probably means that there wasn't enough evidence to prove that these people were caught in infidelity, but merely suspected of it. So the reason why this bitter water thing is a thing is it was to see and prove if, in fact, she was caught in infidelity. And if she didn't miscarry with this bitter water, or the symptoms didn't arise from consuming it, then she was clean and pure and she was found to be a faithful wife. But if she was, Then she was found to be unclean and impure and found to be in infidelity, and actions could be taken later, right? Because we're talking about the law of Moses. And the law of Moses does include other things that most people do not do today. For instance, Deuteronomy covers warfare, covers how you discipline the child and what should happen if the child is not disciplined. It goes over the fact that the father of the son is stoned beside the child, right? We're obviously not doing that anymore. We're not doing the ordeal of the bitter water. We're not laying waste to entire civilizations, killing all life down to the animals that occupy the area as well, like donkeys and mooses and dogs and cats and so on and so forth. We're also not taking all of the natural mineral resources like gold, iron, bronze, brass, copper, all that, and giving it to the Lord anymore. We're not doing all of that anymore. So the ordeal of the bitter water is a unique historical context as to why it happened and that it did happen, right? Because this was a priestly duty that the priest who was ordained in ministering the law of Moses, kind of like a law enforcement officer, right? Like he was ordained, he was allowed to practice the law of Moses, and he was allowed to enforce and administer it. This was unfortunately one of the duties that the priest, who essentially was like the cop at the time, was doing. There's plenty of other things that are happening then, 3,000 years ago, that are not happening now. And I'm pretty happy that they're not happening now. However, the problem with this video is that this person is claiming that this is something that Christians did. The history of Christianity began shortly after the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ and his ascension to heaven. By the way, if you don't believe in the crucifixion, resurrection, or ascension to heaven, but that's fine. We can look at Jesus as a historical figure. Jesus was not around for this ordeal of the bitter water. He was not around for the laying waste to every single possible life of man, woman, child, dog, animal, donkey, whatever, right? He was not around for that, like not physically around to say what's wrong and what's right. And this video is supposed to be a deconstruction of Christianity. It's more of a deconstruction of ancient Judaism, really. So if you're trying to deconstruct Christianity, you have to deconstruct Christ's teachings. And this ordeal of the bitter water is not one of them. So I believe that's it for now. Go ahead and leave comments in the comment section down below of how wrong or right I am. I don't care. You guys are going to do whatever you want, and I'll see you next time.